Ingraham.com production.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Who's gonna work for the working man? For the working man. Get your hands in the dirt. Who's gonna work on the curb?
I've come to the great city of Pittsburgh to stand with people. And those people are incredible workers. And to show the world that America is back and that we are coming back bigger and better and stronger than ever before. And we're making our own product again. And we're opening up our factories again.
You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. The president travels to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, marking now almost 1 year since he was sworn in on that inauguration day. It seems like, in a way, it seems like yesterday, but in another way, it seems like it was 5 years ago. Just because the relentless attacks and maligning of this president makes it kind of a long day and a long year. It makes it feel like that, at least. It's funny, we're here in Los Angeles at our great Westwood One Cumulus Studios, and we got our posse together. We're having a great time, and we're moving here, there, everywhere. We're in Vegas yesterday, did the Ingram Angle last night here in L.A. We have another great show on tap tonight here in Los Angeles, covering a wide range of issues. And I can't remember where we were exactly, but I was able to catch part of Trump. I guess it was when I was blowing into the hotel yesterday. I was able to catch part of Trump, just snippets. And I looked up, and I looked at Raymond, and I said, he looks really good. I mean, he looks really good. And he was super calm and seemed super confident. And I don't know, something struck me when I just watching him yesterday. And again, I didn't even have a chance to watch the entire speech. But then I started getting texts and emails from people. They started rolling in, bing, 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 bing. Like, uh-oh, what's happening in Pittsburgh? I thought, oh, no, this is bad news. Some protester threw something at him. And no, it was, wow, this guy is kind of back on the campaign trail, campaigning for the American worker after 1 year of economic policy making and deregulation with much more to come. We've seen a staggeringly impressive series of economic accomplishments, and we have a 31% gain in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So if you invested in the Dow Jones Index Fund on Election Day last year of 2016 now, oh my gosh, you've increased your portfolio by almost a third. Think about that. And it's not just if you're an individual investing. Do you have a 401k? Are you a teacher and you're in a pension fund? I was talking to a friend today. She said, Laura, my husband has never been so busy. I hardly ever see him. She said, well, absence makes the heart grow fonder, but he's so busy. And she said the calls started coming in the day after the election, and they haven't stopped since. He does a lot of home electrical work, but then he does a lot of small commercial building work as well. This gain in the stock market is the best since FDR, coming out of the Great Depression. And this is just one metric. We've gone through a lot of them here on the show. The fact now that we will see $38 billion just from Apple's move back into the United States in new tax revenues to the American government. $38 billion. Now that money is really good. What does that do? That pays a lot of Social Security checks. That covers a lot of this big, fat government spending we have to do on entitlement programs, the money people paid into the system all these years. And this is conservative free market theory in practice. If you lower the burden on businesses, you really push the deregulation in earnest. And as Trump campaigned, remember during the campaign when he was debating Hillary, he said, we got $2.5 trillion in profits sitting overseas. They are not repatriating the money because of the high taxes. They're not going to do it. Corporate profits are taxed at such a steep rate, highest in the world, in the developed world. They're not bringing them back. They're going to keep it over there in Korea. They're going to keep it in India. They'll keep it in Ireland. Wherever they are, they're going to keep it there. They're not bringing it back. My policies will bring it back. He was laughed at for saying that. He was ridiculed and laughed at because people said, oh, well, you know something? This is the they just repeat their same old tired theories they heard in their poli-sci and economic 1 classes in college. Repeating this. Trump said, oh, really? Watch me. And 1,000 jobs Apple is going to create as part of this new manufacturing and innovation. Now, what did Barack Obama say in 2012? Let's replay that, James. I think it's really important that people remember how wrong Democrats and the Democrat leadership was back during the debate with Mitt Romney and Candy Crowley. Remember that debate with Candy? Let me see the transcript, Candy. Remember that debate? Let's listen.
iPad, the Macs, the iPhones, they are all manufactured in China. One of the major reasons is labor is so much cheaper here. How do you convince a great American company to bring that manufacturing back here?
Candy, there's some jobs that are not going to come back because they're low-wage, low-skill jobs. I want high-wage, high-skill jobs.
Well, again, Forbes, Fortune, all these columnists said similar things. Guess what? The jobs aren't coming back. The jobs just are not going to be coming back. Let's listen to more from the president yesterday, though, because a lot of you are out and about. You didn't see this, and the major television networks covered about 30 seconds of it, and then they went on to criticize him, of course. But this was more from Trump in Pittsburgh, heralding the first year in office, the accomplishments for the American people. Let's listen.
We're putting America back to work, and we're ensuring the forgotten men and women of our country are never, ever forgotten again. Remember? The deplorables. The deplorables. We're all deplorables. Who would have thought that was going to turn into a landslide, right? Who would have thought that was going to turn in? That was not a good phrase that she used. Some things you'd like to have back.
Well, I think President Trump could probably say that about some of the things that have happened over the last year, truth be told, but that's just the way it goes. And it was so good, the speech was so good yesterday, that even Chris Matthews, who obviously is no fan of the president, he sees Trump connecting with the working people, and he said this.
I watched every minute of the president's stump speech this afternoon in Pittsburgh. It was a barn burner. He hit all the high notes, never a flat one. He spread out the good news, hitting strong on minority employment numbers, taking a gentle clip at his 2016 rival without any obvious nastiness. His pitch was uplifting, gung-ho, with all the flags flying.
And not just that, he was warning Democrats, Chris Matthews, that you better bring your game. You better really bring your A game if you're going to take on Trump in 2020.
I'm trying to think of a Democratic rival who could match the performance. Maybe you can help me out here. Someone who can sell this country while making a case for herself or himself. Someone who can make people feel empowered, feel like they matter, and still give them hope that they will win in the end. My point, which I expect to make often in the next 3 years, is that you can't beat someone with no one.
You can't beat someone with no one. Well, that's obvious. And you see the Democrats relying on the presidential approval numbers, which have hovered anywhere around 39%. I think there was a new poll that came out today, it's 39%. Like, oh, another low for President Trump, another low. Well, oh, the global citizenry doesn't like the leadership of President Trump. The Global Citizens Poll, Pew Research, shows that America's standing in the world is low. How many of you listening on this Friday give a rip about what the global citizenry thinks of the United States? Go back to the Reagan days and how the same things were said about his leadership. He wanted to bring America back. We were done with the humiliation under Jimmy Carter, and America was going to be the dominant player on the world scene because our economy was going to come back, meaning we were going to have peace through strength. The Soviets were going to be challenged, and America's ideas would come to the fore. And at the very end of it, of course, had come out to be the obvious best ideas and how to run the economy, how to bring a country back from the economic brink, how to do the right brinkmanship with the Soviets without starting a thermonuclear war. Reagan tutored them all into how to do that. But it's not like he didn't get grief every step of the way and wasn't maligned every step of the way. I think Trump, it's even worse. I mean, they despised Reagan. Reagan was just an amazing orator and leader and thinker. They despised Trump for some of the same reasons, but different reasons as well. For them, Trump is a total vulgarian. George will use that term a lot. He's a vulgarian. Well, guess what? When people hear that coming from fancy people in Washington, they feel like the fancy people in Washington are talking about them too. They're vulgarians. And yet these are people who work in factories, whose family worked in factories, who volunteer for our military, who did every job up the economic ladder to support themselves. These aren't vulgarians. These are the American people. And they were sick of being kicked to the curb and ridiculed and maligned by both Republicans and Democrats in the bipartisan cabal that have been running this country into the ground. They were tired of it. That's why they elected Trump. Even knowing all of, Trump's past, he's not perfect, the stuff he said about, women, the stuff, all the stuff out there. They knew all that. And they still elected him. So if the elites in D.C. and New York still don't understand that I don't, at this point, I really just can't spend a lot of time on them, and I can't help them. I understand you think Trump is uncouth. Now move on. Are the policies working? Or policies and results don't matter at all because he's such a vulgarian to you. So policies don't matter, results don't matter, Supreme Court justices don't matter because you think Trump's a vulgarian. And these people wonder why they can't elect anyone with their worldview anymore because there's no constituency for what they're selling. There's just none. All right, we have a lot more to get to on the Laura Ingraham Show. 855-40-LAURA. I'll dig into this poll that the left is clinging to on the Global Citizenry Poll. Are you worked up about the fact that the global population apparently has a low view of the United States right now? Remember what President Trump said? I'm not running to be president of the world. I'm running to be president of the United States. We don't fly a global flag. We fly the flag of the red, white, and blue of America, and we believe in this country and her greatness. We're going to make it even greater. That's what he campaigned on. He didn't campaign on being, running under the UN flag. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. Here in Los Angeles, we're going to talk to Congressman Mark Meadows as showdown over the shutdown continues. Senator Jim Lankford from Oklahoma is going to join us. And the March for Life today in Washington, D.C., hundreds of thousands turning out. Thank goodness it's good weather. And my kids are going. We get 100 buses from just one university, Notre Dame. All young people. The march is so inspiring, and we'll be talking about the importance of this issue and what Donald Trump did that no other president had done before for this day. Don't go away.
Feeling kind of groovy and it's la la la. Oh, it's getting better now. La la la. You almost forget how. La, la, la.
There's never been a better time to hire in America, to invest in America, and to believe in the American dream than right now.
Podcast One has new shows on our new app. Check out all the cool features to help you explore our exciting new programming, like America's Lakers podcast with Jay Moore, So Random with Corinne Olympios, Attack Each Day, the Harbaugh's podcast, Not Just Sports with Susie Schuster and Rich Eisen, and Sessions with Randy Jackson, as well as your old favorites like The Lady Gang, Steve Austin, Shaquille O'Neal, and Adam Carolla. Get the new Podcast One app in the App Store, Google Play, or podcastone.com.
We have created nearly 2.2 million jobs since the election. The unemployment rate is at now an 18-year low. The number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits just hit a 45-year low.
Incredible. It's amazing. You think about this. Remember a year ago, the women ascending on Washington with their stupid pink knit hats. Now they call the hats magenta. I have a question. When they call the hats magenta, do they think they looked any less ridiculous in them? Now it's like magenta hats.
I'm really offended by your calling them the wrong color, Laura, I have to say. Very offensive.
Magenta hats.
They're not pink.
Oh,
okay?
Come on. It's so stupid. So they descended on Washington a year ago. And they think, this is our moment. We have all these women running for office all over the country. This is our moment. This isn't your moment. This is the moment of honest policies delivering honest results. Now, the Democrats might have a monopoly on emotion because they're always huffing and puffing without a substantive understanding of the issues. This is why I keep discussing this theme on the Ingraham angle. Every night, Fox News, DVR us if you're out. If you're out tonight on a Friday night, I want you to DVR the show, and you're going to want to watch it when you get home. And if you fall asleep because you went out and had too many margaritas, then you watch it in the morning. Solutions matter, right? Stunts versus solutions. The Democrats are full of stunts, including that women's march. That was a big stunt, and it came off huge. It was a huge stunt, but it was a stunt. Not serious. You did not help a single woman with a women's march. All you did is create a lot more work for the sanitation crews in Washington, D.C. And as far as I can tell, no pro-life women felt welcome at that march. It was a march for liberal women. Okay, I hope you all felt better, and you're going to, I guess, march. You're going to have more people in Washington this weekend, but not as many as you had last year, obviously. You threatened to blow up President Obama with President Trump, Madonna, and Ashley Judd screaming. All these people are screaming at the Women's March. Meanwhile, today, for the March for Life, you're going to have hundreds of thousands of mostly young people from colleges and universities, high schools, junior highs, across the country, not just from D.C., by the way, all across the country. The longest running march in the history of the United States today. We're going to be talking about this. The President of the United States, it believes so much in the pro-life issue. Talk about saving women. Think of all the girls who never were allowed to be born, to live, to march, to think, to work, to be. 25 million little girls could have lived if we didn't have the scourge of Roe versus Wade. Think about that. What that means to the psyche, the human psyche, the human condition. Donald Trump is going to address the march via video hookup. He's going to be meeting with a lot of the kids in the Rose Garden. Raymond Arroyo's son, Alex, is going to be there. He's invited them all to the White House. We'll be on this a lot more. Mark Meadows, up next.
You're gonna have to save somebody. Yes, you are. You're gonna have to save somebody.
This is like giving you bowl of doggy do, put a cherry on top, and call it a chocolate sundae. This is nothing. Mm-hmm. This is the chip. This chip should have been done in September. First of all, second of all, we wanted 10 years. We wanted permanent chip, which, by the way, saves $6 billion.
Yes, you are. You're gonna have to save.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. Nancy Pelosi painting that for us of dog excrement in a bowl with some chocolate sauce and cherry on top. Thanks, Nancy. See, that's what we kind of think of when we think of your leadership style. But she was talking about the Children's Health Initiative. And see, the Democrats care more about the children, at least the ones who've been born. That's what they want. That's what they want you to think. March for Life today. I want to give a big shout out to everybody participating. And it's heartbreaking that I had this commitment in Los Angeles and Las Vegas, and that I'm not there because I was there. Most years I've been in the March for Life, marching or participating in some way or interviewing the folks there. And this year has just worked out the timing, so it's so sad for me. But I'm sending my children. They're going in my place. Hundreds of thousands will show up, and that means NBC, CBS, CNN will cover it for about 15 seconds and do a real tight shot on like 12 people there, right, Elisa? That's how it usually works. At least they're usually there covering it, and you get your cameras out and interviewing people. You've done some good profiles of the marchers in the past, but just no one sees it otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, they really just ignore it on all the news shows, so it's good. It's good. Whoever gets out there to cover it, it's great.
It's awesome. Mark Meadows is with us, congressman from the great state of North Carolina, chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. The far-right anti-immigrant caucus in the House of Representatives, the group of hardliners. Didn't say all the mainstream media types. Mark, how are you? Good to talk to you, sir.
I'm doing well. It's great to be with you. I'm glad you got the accurate intro there, Laura, but it's always great to be back with you.
So, Congressman, Nancy Pelosi painted that picture for us of how y'all dealt with the Children's Health Initiative, and doing her best to try to eke out some type of, I think, at least rhetorical advantage against you all. But you did manage to get that continuing resolution to keep the government funded passed yesterday. But now, what's the next step for you? I know the Senate looks like they're not going to have the votes for the continuing resolution at least a couple of days of government shutdown over the weekend. But where do things stand in the House moving forward?
We just want to make sure that we change the way Washington does business. I mean, you've covered this, and as you mentioned, you've been here at the March for Life on a regular basis, and even though you're not with us today in person, we feel your presence here because we know where you are. But I think we want to change the real way that we do business. This was our fourth continuing resolution that we voted for yesterday, which means that it's go down the field, punt, go down the field, punt. It's time that we actually do what we promise the American people we do and provide long-term solutions. Now, it's interesting that Nancy Pelosi, who has now voted against help for children 3 different times, would describe it as doggy poo in a bowl with a cherry on top. That is a soundbite that will come back to haunt her, just like, we've got to pass it before we understand what is in the bill, before we read it. But, I think the big thing is I do believe that we could have a short-term shutdown. I think Chuck Schumer is going to play a political card here, and then we will open it back up for, a few days. And so the next 3 to 4 weeks could be a whole lot of very short-term funding battles, but it's all going to come down to one issue, and you mentioned it at the lead-in. It's about immigration, and it's about giving amnesty, and it's about not securing our border. And so for many of us, we're willing to work on this issue of these DACA recipients, but we've got to stop the reason for it. We've got to control the border. We've got to make sure that sanctuary cities are not a haven for crime. We've got to make sure that chain migration doesn't mean that we just have an open border policy. And so that was part of the debate yesterday here on Capitol Hill.
And we're talking to Congressman Mark Meadows here. Describes as the problem on Capitol Hill. Now, I want question about the normal course budgeting that should be done instead of these continuing resolutions to keep funding the government. Normal budgeting means that all 12 federal departments, right, each of them has a budget, and each of those budgets have to pass. And it would seem to me, Congressman, that we would say, okay, HHS, you're going to get X amount of money. This is all we have. and not a penny more. That's all you get. So you can do whatever budget you want. We'll be looking it over, but this is all the money you're getting. Same with HUD and same with defense and same with every department of the federal government. And those bills should be voted on one after the other after the other. Why doesn't that happen?
Well, you're spot on, and you could not be more accurate in what should be happening. Now, that has not happened for the last 6 years. And so what happens is you get these huge government shutdown scenarios, and what truly the leadership in both the Senate and the House has to say no more continuing resolutions. And the House actually did pass 12 appropriations bills back in the latter part of August, first part of September, sent them to the Senate, and nothing happened. And so either you got to get different leadership who are committed to going back to the 12 appropriations process, or you've got to get leadership with a backbone who says we've got to stop doing business in this very dysfunctional way and get back to doing 12 appropriations bills. So if you don't get an agreement, all you're doing is shutting down one agency, not the entire government. And that's what conservatives believe is not only fiscally responsible, but it's the right way to do it. Now, Laura, let me be real brief on this. The other reason they do this is because if they tie it all together, we spend a lot more money. And so even some Republicans want to spend more money. And so that's the reason they do it this way instead of negotiating 12 different appropriations bills.
So they get these last-minute concessions. They tie it to amnesty for illegals. I think just regular people listening to us, it's hard to understand how giving amnesty to illegal immigrants should in any way get in the way of funding government for the U.S. citizenry. It's crazy.
You're exactly right.
That has nothing to do with funding government for the U.S. citizenry.
Exactly, and yet what they're doing is blaming President Trump for a shutdown when they're trying to use it as leverage to provide amnesty to a group of people who came here illegally. I mean, it's just it should not be connected. So you're exactly right.
Well, I think in the end, if the Democrats want to shut down the government, I think it's almost incumbent upon Republicans at this point not to stand in their way, because I think this is extremely illuminating for the working people of this country to see where the priorities of the Democrats really are. The priorities for Chuck Schumer and I'd say Lindsey Graham, because I'd consider him a full-blown Democrat on this issue, Jeff Flake, all the rest of them. Their priorities are to take care of illegal immigrants first and the American citizenry second. If they are not willing to actually move forward on funding this government on the basis of amnesty for illegal immigrants. And I think it's very illuminating. And I think the Democrats get blamed every step of the way. Trump has offered people a pathway, and they blew it up because they tried to cram through a bill that they frankly knew he could never agree to, that increased chain migration and increased illegal immigration because it didn't give enough border enforcement. So they knew he couldn't accept that, and they blew it up.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. It was not a serious deal. I know I talked to the president about that. He's willing to negotiate, but he says, I'm not going to negotiate with the national security and border security of our country. I'm not going to do that. And he didn't want to shut down, doesn't want to shut down, but at the same time, he's not going to be forced to do a bad deal for the American people.
No way. Congressman Mark Meadows, we'll see you on TV soon. Thank you so much for your pro-life stance, especially this very important day on the March for Life taking place in Washington, D.C., undercovered or not covered at all by the lamestream media. We will cover it. We have extensive reporting that we're going to be doing both on LauraIngraham.com and tonight on TV. Congressman Meadows, thank you so much. We're going to take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Your reaction to this? Who gets the blame for a shutdown? And since now we find out that only essential employees need to show up during a shutdown, who are all these non-essential employees and why do we need them? I always say this. If you're not essential to the working of the federal government, why? That's just where we start cutting spending, cutting the number of employees we have working for the government. This is the Great Employment Program in Washington, D.C., the federal government. Big, big, big. Keep the government growing so we can employ people in the District of Columbia. It's just a travesty. All right, we'll take a break. Get your reaction to this. The economy is growing bigger than even Trump thought it would in that first year. Do you believe that it's affecting your bottom line? Do you already feel it? And if you do, tell me how you see it, how you feel it. Are you seeing it in your 401k? Are you seeing it in your own stock portfolio, or in the business that you're able to increase your customer base? I want to hear your stories 1 year later, the Trump administration marking this anniversary after a year of some downs but mostly ups. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA.
If it's meant to be, it'll be, it'll be. Baby, just let it be. If it's meant to be.
As soon as really a few weeks from now, millions of American workers will be seeing the signs of America's comeback in their paychecks in February. Very simply, your paychecks will be much bigger because under our tax cuts, you will be keeping more of your hard-earned money.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Well, your paychecks are getting fatter and your 401k is going up. And the value of your portfolio, if you're just invested in a broad strategy, include a lot of the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the big board stocks, are doing real well. Good stuff. Let's go to Cheryl in Virginia, line 4. How's the economy doing for you, Cheryl?
Well, what happened was my husband works for Walmart, and he's gone to $11 an hour, and he got a $300 bonus.
That's great. Where are you abouts in Virginia?
Lynchburg.
I heard that. I was literally going to say you are from Lynchburg, and you know why? Cheryl, do you know why I know you're from Lynchburg? Well, say I'm going to walk about the house. Say that sentence. I'm going to walk about the house.
I'm going to walk about the house.
House. I hear the accent. That's why. I'm going to walk about the house. Good for you. Tell your husband, keep it going, and good for you. And Walmart's paying more money, too, per hour. So good deal. I love it. Let's go to Tom in Indiana. I love that high Virginia accent. It's an accent that's disappearing. Has an old English lilt from colonial days. You can hear it a little bit. Tom, go ahead.
Well, what about a Jersey accent, Laura?
I love it. I love Jersey accents.
Okay. Yes, I'm a transplant out here. I actually looked on my bank account this morning, and I went, because I get paid a salary, and I'm like, wow, I got $37 more in my paycheck this week. I'm like, okay, times 4.3, that's $157 in my pocket compared to the government, so I'll take it.
Take anything. Take any increase you can get. And I think more's coming. Great news. Let's go to Ken in Iowa on the shutdown and how Trump should play it. Kenny.
Miss Laura. Well, anyway, I think he should just let the government shut down on what the Dems are running on. They haven't they haven't tried to even come close to backing him. They haven't tried to do anything that was pro-America. They're always backing illegals and wanting foreign nationals to. I think they ought to just let it go.
Let it go. Ken, excuse me, I think you're exactly right. Republicans are always living in fear of a shutdown. Remember they all thought back in 2013 that Ted Cruz was going to sink the Republican Party in the midterms in 2014? Well, what happened? We picked up seats. We actually picked up seats. I would call the Democrats on their games that they've been playing, and I would say, look, you want to shut the government down and imperil the American citizenry because you are so obsessed and fanatical about amnesty, then you go right ahead and do that. We're fighting for the American people. And we're not going to be bullied by you into putting the interests of illegal immigrants ahead of the American people. We're not going to be bullied by you. I completely agree with Ken. All right, more on this and your reaction. 855-40-LAURA, Ingram Angle tonight.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Oh, won't you stay with me? 'Cause you're all I need.
These kids came here the average age of 6 years old. They've got no place to go. I want them to be citizens. I want them to get a good education. I want them to understand who America is. They got to wait 12 years, but if you don't want the children to be part of America, then I couldn't disagree with you more. I want them to stay on our terms. These will be the Trump dreamers. The president has a chance to have a legacy that Obama and Bush could never embrace. It would be wonderful if Donald Trump could take these young people who have no other country other than America and give them a chance to be part of us.
Get them the hell out of here. Get them out of here. Get out. Get them out of here.
Oh, man, I love Fridays. I love Fridays on radio and TV. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight broadcasting the Ingraham angle from Los Angeles. We are hot on this sanctuary city issue, sanctuary state issue. I have an update on that for you coming up later this hour. The freak killer who murdered those 2 police officers back in 2014, he was in court a few days ago. You won't believe what he said. And Donald Trump standing up for the regular people. Their rule of law, the Constitution, ability to make a decent living as a middle-class person or someone just getting into the workforce for the first time. You shouldn't have your wages kept artificially low by this glut of foreign workers and students in public schools that gobble up resources for English as a second language programs, all of this stuff. But, man, you listen to that Lindsey Graham. He is a fanatic about amnesty. Nothing's changed with Graham. This has been going on since 2006 with him. He is fanatical. I'll tell you who isn't fanatical about it is Donald Trump. He didn't campaign on any amnesty, as far as I could tell. He didn't go out there in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Wisconsin say, you know, I'm going to be the president who delivers amnesty for the dreamers. He didn't say that. He said we're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. And it's going to be rule of law. And our laws are going to mean something. Our borders are going to mean something. But Lindsey Graham's, well, Mr. President, they can be the Trump dreamers. They can be the Trump dreamers. It is not our problem or our fault that the parents of these individuals brought them into the country illegally. That's not our problem. That's the fault of the parents who brought them in. And by the way, Lindsey Graham would like all the parents to be legal as well. He wants amnesty to go across the board. It's more like 10 million people.
These will be the Trump dreamers.
Oh, please. How many of you think that, quote, dreamers would be voting Republican? How many of those dreamers are going to be Republicans? I don't think many. If demographics are destiny, and I kind of get tired of that phrase, then I think Republicans could be in some trouble down the road. If there's no end to chain migration, if we just keep going down this road. But, I mean, again, these people are fanatics. They keep coming. They are like Michael Myers in the Halloween movies. You think you've killed off amnesty, and it's always coming back. There is an unending appetite, insatiable appetite, for more amnesties. Whether it's the Salvadorans or the Venezuelans or someone had an earthquake, you can come here. And by the way, after the earthquake is gone and the village is rebuilt, you can still stay here. Temporary protective status. How dare you deny temporary protective status to the Haitians? Well, the village has been rebuilt and businesses have opened in the country, and so the temporary protective status should be over. No, they've got to stay. So Lindsey Graham thinks everyone should stay. By the way, the USA Today did a piece yesterday. The number of dreamers is 3.6 million, not 800,000. A lot of you think, oh, it's just 800,000. Those are only the people who registered under the Obama temporary amnesty, which was the temporary status. They got to stay. That's about 800,000. But the real number of so-called dreamers is 3.6 million. The Democrats, if they have their druthers, all of them would get amnesty. All of them would be able to bring in their extended family members under chain migration. So the multiplier effect of these amnesties will be exponential. if we do not end chain migration. So there is no way that these DACA, quote, kids, average age 24, there's no way these DACA kids should be allowed to bring in anyone to the country. No way. Their parents already are here. And assuming most of them have brothers and sisters already here, they're illegal too. So there's just no way you can keep that up. We're going to talk to Senator Jim Lankford coming up in just a few minutes. What is going to happen in the Senate today? The president is delaying his trip to Mar-a-Lago, which I think is a good idea, because that would look terrible. If the shutdown was looming and he heads to Mar-a-Lago to celebrate the one-year anniversary of being in office, I just don't think that looks good. And we would kill Democrats if they were doing that. And he would just hammer a Democrat in the same situation with the same optics. So he's delaying that trip, which is good. So we're going to talk to Lankford. What's going to happen in the Senate? They don't have the votes to continue funding the government as of now. Schumer has said he may be willing to sign on to some type of continuing funding of the government for a number of days, but not weeks or months. Who's to blame? Do you believe that Republicans should call the Democrats' bluff on this? You want to shut it down? You go shut it down. We want to keep the government open and serve the American people. You want to serve illegal immigrants? Okay. You blew up the plan. We told you what you needed to do, and now it's on you, my friends. I think they should call their bluff. I don't think they should be in any way intimidated by these tactics. We're going to get to all of this. 855-40-LAURA. As Nancy Pelosi has a new career. It's a sideline of sorts. She's going to be a guest judge on RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars. RuPaul, the famous drag queen. And Nancy Pelosi will be the guest judge on the drag queen, I guess it's kind of a talent beauty contest. I think Nancy Pelosi's right where she belongs. We'll take a break. Don't go away.
This is like giving you a bowl of doggy doo, put a cherry on top and call it a chocolate sundae.
See those fault lines laid out like landmines, it's hard to relax.
If they think that they can shut down the government by going back on the president's promise of keeping the government open for a clean DACA deal, if they think that they can shut down the government and not see the president's own promise back in the fall, that he wanted to shut down the government because he thought a government shutdown would be a good thing, then they are dreaming, and they deserve the minority status that they're going to get this coming fall.
That's from Morning Mika today on MSNBC. Joe Brzezinski giving his analysis. It's the Republicans' fault if the government shuts down. Boy, that MSNBC panel back in 2013 when Barack Obama was in power and the Republicans were the party out of power, they had a completely different analysis. Went back and watched that. Joining us now, Senator from the great state of Oklahoma, James Lankford is joining us now. Congressman, I'm calling you Congressman now. Senator Lankford, how are you? Good to talk to you.
I'm doing great. It's great to talk to you as well.
Let's talk about where we are on the shutdown mania. You got the stopwatches on the cable channels. Everyone's playing this up. The Democrats seek to shift the blame to Republicans, contrary to how they handled it in 2013, of course. Where do these negotiations stand, if at all?
Well, it's hard to be able to tell where they stand on it because the Democrats have asked for something irrational, and they know it. This looks to be their play all along, is to try to do a government shutdown over the issue of immigration, and to say because Republicans won't give us what we want on immigration, we're going to shut the government down. That's a little frustrating to everyone across the entire country when President Trump's deadline to deal with immigration is not until the first week of March, and then Democrats have decided, well, we'll just do a government shutdown right now and force you to try to do it our way, which clearly we're not going to do it, just quote-unquote their way. We've got to be able to solve border security.
Well, when we look at the state where I am right now, I'm in California, broadcasting here tonight for the Ingraham angle, Senator, and what's happened to this state under supermajority Democrat rule has been just heartbreaking. For those of us who've spent a lot of time and even lived in California, you look at the poverty rate, the welfare rolls, the obscenely high percentage of illegal immigrants in the prison population here in California, the cost of public schools for multiple languages being taught and tutored at the school, healthcare costs, the high rate of taxation and regulation in California. Now, of course, the great nirvana of legalizing pot is going to make it all better. If this is what the rest of the country wants, then I think America, even with Trump, is going to have a very, very tough time of it.
Well, I would tell you that's not what the entire country wants, because Oklahoma continues to be able to pick up more and more businesses moving from California to Oklahoma, and to try to get out of that situation, and we'll continue to be able to do that as well will the rest of the country. As people say, I'm not going to put up with this. I want to raise my family in a place that is secure, and I want to raise my family in a place that's a great place to be able to raise a family. So while it's a beautiful state, if you can't handle the crime and you can't handle the transitions that are happening, that becomes a big issue.
Senator, the issue of sanctuary cities, and in this state, the whole state's a sanctuary state, really came to the fore when we saw that the Attorney General of California has directed employers to beware that they can be prosecuted under the new Protection for Immigrants Act, illegal and legal, in California that was signed into law effective on January 1st, that they could actually be liable under this law if they disturb the privacy rights of illegal immigrants and cooperate with the federal immigration authorities. That's actually what he said.
Yeah, it's a remarkably painful whole series of conversations there. The focus is that they continue to be able to push out is these individuals are trying to reconnect with family, they're trying to be able to come to work, and there's no question that there are many of the individuals crossing the border illegally that are trying to connect with family or trying to come to work. There's also no question that some of the people crossing the border are drug dealers, human smugglers, human traffickers, labor brokers, terrorists, gang members. There's no question, but there seems to be no interest in actually trying to secure the border and to be able to engage with the people that want to come to work in a legal way to do that, and to be able to block out the people. Their focus is just open it up and we'll figure it out later. After they commit a crime, we'll pick them up. Of course, we won't deport them. We'll still leave them here. But after they commit a crime, we'll pick them up rather than trying to proactively do it. We certainly don't do it that way in terrorism. We want to be able to have a terror watch list. We want to be able to secure our borders, to be able to make sure that individuals don't cross into our nation to be able to commit acts of terrorism. We try to find it far away. California's focus seems to be, no, let them come here and commit a crime and we'll figure it out later. That certainly doesn't provide stability to your community.
Well, I think, again, when you look at what's happened in this state, just from the sanctuary policies, we had those 2 police officers shot and killed brutally 2 or 3 years ago. Man had been deported 7 times. And this is a man who stabbed a 61-year-old multiple times in the neck, deported several times. These cases both came to the public's attention in just the last couple of days because they both had court appearances. It's a heartbreaker. I want to go back for a moment to what's happening with this big debate over funding the government. Senator Lankford, Mitch McConnell the other day said this. Let's listen.
I'm looking for something that President Trump supports, and he's not yet indicated what measure he's willing to sign. As soon as we figure out what he is for, then I would be convinced that we were not just spinning our wheels going to this issue on the floor.
As far as I can tell, the president made it very clear what he wants, Senator Lankford. He's already said he supports the Labrador Goodlatte bill in the House of Representatives. So why does Senator McConnell seem to not know what the president wants, and do you agree with his sentiment?
I actually don't agree with that sentiment in this sense. In October of last year, the president put out a long list of here are the priorities that he has for immigration. Again, Dick Durbin and multiple of the Democrats said the president's not released anything out. No, they actually just don't like what he released out. It's not that he hasn't released anything. He has released it. He released it in October. He came back and gave a pared-down list. The Department of Homeland Security has now given more detail on what it means for border security, all the legal aspects. He's detailed all those things out, and in the meeting as recently as last week, we identified the 4 areas that the bill has to circle around: border security, visa lottery, the chain migration issue, and the DACA. Those are the 4 areas of the bill and the 4 corners of it, and so whatever negotiations happen around that forward, and the president has been clear. Now, I would say the president and the leadership team from the White House continue to meet with the House and the Senate leadership to be able to give clear definition to what it means for border security. It's been the issue the Democrats don't want to discuss is border security issues, but that's something that we still have to be able to finish working out, but I think the president has been clear on that.
Yeah, I thought that was an odd statement from McConnell. Finally, on the issue of chain migration, you said deal with chain migration. I know you introduced your own kind of version of the DREAM Act with Tom Tillis in September, where you didn't really tie the chain migration issue to that. Back then, it was called the Succeed Act. But are you in agreement with this White House that we have to end, not limit, but end chain migration?
No, I completely agree on that. In fact, the Succeed Act was never intended to be a standalone bill. And when Tom and I released it, even our statement was this has to go with border security. Oh, no, I understand. It has to go with border security. We said at the very beginning, this is a chapter. We work with the White House to be able to help establish what would be something that would be more acceptable as a conservative solution, because the president said, I want a solution that's a legal, in-law solution on the DACA issues, but we've got to resolve chain migration. And so far, there has not been a proposal back. In fact, what was put out by Durbin was simply a restatement of current law, said we'll agree to that. Well, that's certainly not acceptable.
It's just ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. Senator, we want to have you on the Ingraham angle. Join us soon. We really appreciate your joining us today. Thank you so much. A lot more to get to. Stay with us.
Hi, this is Ben Domenech, the host of the Federalist Radio Hour. We're a daily show coming to you 5 days a week from Washington, D.C., where we interview our nation's top journalists, politicians, authors, chefs, economists, entertainers, and more. If you're looking for a contrarian discussion on news, politics, or culture, give us a listen and subscribe at podcastone.com, the new Podcast One app, or at Apple Podcasts.
Oh, what about us? What about all the times we said you had the answer?
It is past time for my colleagues on the other side of the aisle to work on a bipartisan spending package that promotes the middle class, protects dreamers, and finally assures the American people that their government is working. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. A government shutdown will land squarely in their lap.
Nice try, sweetheart. We certainly didn't have that view of things back in 2013, did we? Back then, Barack Obama. Let's play that soundbite. This is Barack Obama in reaction to the 2013 shutdown, when one group was trying to, put the whole government at risk. This was in relation to the debt ceiling, until we default on all our obligations because they weren't getting their way. Let's listen.
When you have a situation in which a faction is willing, potentially, to default on U.S. government obligations, then we are in trouble. And if they're willing to do it now, they'll be willing to do it later.
I mean, they forget the sound bites that are out there. And yeah, they were in the people over at MSNBC today were saying, oh, well, President Trump last August said maybe we need an old-fashioned shutdown. See, he wants to shut down the government. President Trump is basically saying the Democrats want to do this, then we'll see where their real priorities are. The American people will have the great benefit of seeing what they're really all about. President Trump wants to fund the government. The Democrats are withholding funding for the continuing resolution because they put dreamers ahead of the American citizens. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz in that soundbite, well, we want to help the middle class. If you wanted to help the middle class, you wouldn't have been in favor of mass legalization of illegals and leaving our borders open. You would be in favor of deporting people who are here illegally and taking away the incentives for people to hire illegal immigrants in the first place if you cared so much about the middle class. Give me a break. Let's go to Doug in Nevada. We just left Nevada yesterday. Seems like 5 days ago, doesn't it, Lisa? Lisa's having a flashback to the book tour. You don't sleep when you're on the road with me, Lisa. It just goes on and on and on.
It's fun. I love being on the road.
Lisa said I got to get home so I can catch up on sleep. It's just we don't sleep for days. It's just the way it goes.
That's what the weekends for.
Yeah, it's fine. Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, I wonder something. The DACA so-called children
that are over 18 years old, like 21 and 30, how are they are adults when they were breaking the law. Now, how do they get protection as children?
No, they were under the age of 18. So now, because so much time has gone by, yeah, they're older. But over the last 20 years, they're called dreamers. Last 20 years, they've been living here, but they came here as minors. That's why they're called dreamers. So if you were 19 in that time period, then you don't qualify as a dreamer. But I see your general concern. Let's go to Mike in Georgia on line 4. Mike.
Hey, Laura, how you doing?
I'm great.
I wanted to make a point that a lot of people around me have realized, and I just think it needs to be made where everybody can hear it, and that's the fact that who sneaks into another country and expects that government to just make you a citizen? It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. I mean, it wouldn't happen anywhere. Most countries are going to detain you and deport you right away. Some countries would even throw you in prison and then maybe one day deport you. I mean, the insanity has one real purpose. I think most people out there realize it. It's all about votes.
I will read this to you, and thank you for bringing that up, Mike. A piece that was on NPR back on December 21st, that police and illegal immigration, what our neighbors do. And it was an examination of what Canada and Mexico do as countries, excuse me. A few Canadian cities have adopted the sanctuary city label, but in practice, they do not offer the same kind of protection from law enforcement that American sanctuary cities do. When American jurisdictions are saying they're sanctuary cities and they're actually saying they will not cooperate with immigration enforcement, that's a really strong stand, said an activist with a Canadian pro-immigration group called No One is Illegal. That is not what the municipal sanctuary cities here in Canada mean at all. They're not at all talking about not collaborating with detention and deportation. Byron Cruz is a naturalized Canadian citizen originally from Guatemala who works with recent immigrants. He says the ones who don't have legal status fear encounters with the police. There is no protection, he says. If the Vancouver Police Department gets your name can be accessed by the Canada Border Service Agency. And when an individual is subject to the Canadian immigration warrant, the police would be required to notify us of that, and then they can be deported when you continue this out of the country. So migrants in Mexico, police have been adapting to a different reality resulting from a rewrite of their own law in 2008. It decriminalized migration, so in theory in Mexico, it's no longer a crime to be an illegal immigrant, said a former government official, Jaime Sanchez Lira. That was a consequence of violence tied to human trafficking, he said. By making illegal immigration punishable only by a civil fine, the hope was that migrants moving through Mexico would be less vulnerable to abuse and extortion. Unfortunately, Arredondo, the same individual, says migrants are still often targeted by police and the military. Many of the police forces are associated with the drug cartels, so they will actually go after them. Officially, local police in Mexico aren't supposed to go around asking people about their immigration status. We're able to detain them, and once they're detained, we can actually call Mexican immigration, and they can find out whether they're legal or illegal. But once that's after they have a probable cause of an immigration violation, or the other person commits another crime. So the American sanctuary city concept is largely foreign to Mexico. So you have to read down on the NPR piece to get to the kicker. I'm doing this in real time as I'm on the air. Said local jurisdictions don't prohibit their police from working with national immigration officials. Canada and Mexico do not have sanctuary city policies like we do. Now, are they as harsh as maybe some European countries? No, but they don't, even in those countries, which are much more liberal than ours, they don't put up with this nonsense. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Kathy, Missouri, line 3, government shutdown, big deal. Let the non-essential employees be furloughed for all I care. I don't care at this point. The Democrats, it's their fault. They're to blame. Trump wants to keep it going, and they want to do a bad deal on amnesty. Let them hang for that. Kathy.
I live on Social Security. It's my only income.
but I will gladly eat ramen noodles every darn day if they'll just go ahead and let them shut the government down and then hang with it. I'm tired of the American people being blackmailed by the Democrats at the expense for these illegal immigrants.
Well, I think your Social Security check is okay in any event, so you don't have to worry about that, but I understand the sentiment there as well. Let's go to Bill in Texas, line 1. Bill.
Hey, Laura. Thanks for taking my call. Just one thing, and then I'll hang up. I think the way to get this thing really in motion is the shutdown needs to be named the Schumer shutdown. And every time anybody says anything about it, they ought to call it the Schumer shutdown. And that through the Republicans, through the administration, and the news media, and it needs a name, and it needs to be tied to Schumer. Thank you.
That's great. I love that. I mean, again, brand it. They want to brand things, brand them right back. The Schumer shutdown. I love it. When we come back, we're going to talk about this blockbuster report that was released to all members of Congress yesterday on the Fusion GPS dossier, going right to the heart of the Mueller investigation. Paul Ryan needs to release the memo. Release the memo, release the report. The hashtag release the report has been trending on Twitter. I want you all to keep it up and keep it going. We need all these details released. And I'll play for you what one congressman said on my show last night about what could happen once the report is released. I think this has to be blockbuster, given the fact that all the Republicans that I can think of came out yesterday and said, release this to the public so people see how American citizens, it looks like, were surveilled for political purposes. Barack Obama yesterday came out and said, I can guarantee that that was not done. That's what he said. But okay, let the people decide. Just release it. Paul Ryan knows the process for doing that. You don't even have to apparently technically declassify it. You can still release it. Paul Ryan, I think, has the keys to the release of all of this. So release the report. Hashtag on Twitter. Urge Paul Ryan to do that. We'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. We'll talk about this and a lot more coming up. Remember, the Ingraham Angle tonight. You do not want to miss it. We will have a new Friday segment on the Ingraham Angle that you're not going to want to miss. It we're going to tell you what it is at the end of tonight's show. But you're going to want to participate in it. It's a lot of fun. And we're going to be sending our camera crew out here in Los Angeles to hear from the people on what they think of everything from open borders to secession to the homelessness and poverty problem in the state. And so we'll hear directly from the people of California as well. So you're not going to want to miss the show tonight. 855-40-LAURA.
I don't blame it on the moonlight. I don't blame it on the good times. I blame it on the boogie.
On this issue of the release of this report, is there any national security concern, anything that Paul Ryan could point to avoid a move to declassify or a bureaucratic administrative move to release its content?
I don't think so. I saw nothing in there that releasing it to the public would have any negative effect on our national interest. In fact, I think it's just the opposite. I think the national interest is harmed by keeping it a secret from the public. I think we have to be transparent. We have to get this out there. It is so vital, so important, and I think Americans are going to be as outraged as I know Raul and I are, and many of my colleagues who've read this.
Byron York is reporting that 103, I believe, congressmen have now read the House Intel report that was made available to all of them, trending on Twitter. Release the report. This is apparently a report that contains revelations about the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act abuses, where the United States government surveilled individuals connected in some way to the Trump campaign by using that Fusion GPS dossier funded by Democrats. So the U.S. government is running a political, if this is true, the U.S. government was running a political hit job surveillance operation. Now, if that doesn't frighten you, that's what a police state does. They target their political enemies, they surveil them, and then they destroy them. 115 House members now have read the report. Good question is how many of them, how many Democrats will actually go to the secure room in the House of Representatives and read it? The Democrats care what's in this report? The ones who are obviously not on the Intel Committee. The Intel Committee wrote the report, so they don't have to go. But anyone else who's not on the Intel Committee doesn't know what's in the report. Do you believe that Paul Ryan should release this? Lawmakers describe the report alternatively as troubling, as shocking. It's so alarming that the American people have to see it, said Jim Jordan. Part of me wishes that I didn't have to read it because I don't want to believe that those kinds of things could be happening in this country that I call home and love so much. That's what Jim Jordan said. Using our intelligence agencies and our law enforcement to destroy your political enemies. I mean, that's the kind of stuff they accused J. Edgar Hoover of doing. The enemies list. Who's on the enemies list? And they complain about Putin. Vladimir Putin going after this. Well, the Obama administration's one that went after Fox News, James Rosen. You had Cheryl Atkins's computer broken into. You had conservative groups hounded who were trying to get 501c3 charitable status, delayed, slow-walked. That Lois Lerner disaster at the IRS. You had the Fast and Furious screw-up and cover-up. You had the Benghazi screw-up and cover-up. And by the way, I love all these people saying that, oh, General Kelly is just another Trump administration official who's gone out and trashed his own reputation by lying for the administration. They're saying about General Kelly. Did they say that about Susan Rice when she went to 5 television networks and lied about Benghazi not being a terrorist attack? I mean, she just went out and lied. They all knew it was a terrorist attack. And she went out and lied during an election year. Did they ever say that she trashed her reputation? No, they want to try to destroy people like Kelly. And he's not going to stand for it. No way. 855-40-LORD. Do we have a time for a call, James, or no? No. Okay, well, hold on. I know that we have a board full of calls. Hold on. We'll get to your calls, release the report, and then people can judge for themselves. It's no big deal, then people think it's no big deal. But I think all this stuff should come out. There's no national security concern involved. So...
Thanks for listening to the Laura Ingraham Show podcast. Download new episodes every week at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.